Mr. President.
The Democrat leader.
Mr. President, just days after handing billionaires their largest tax break in modern history, and fresh off passing the most devastating cuts to health care and jobs ever, Republicans want to keep this going. They want to gut funding for local news stations and radio. They want to reward communist China, Putin, and eviscerate foreign aid, all to give tax breaks to billionaires. They say these cuts are necessary in the false guise of eliminating waste, but anyone can see that's not true. It's just to pay for tax cuts to billionaires. Americans are done listening to Republican lectures about wasteful spending after they added $4 trillion to the debt to cut taxes for billionaires. For Republicans to turn around and slash local news and public radio in the name of fiscal responsibility is a vindictive swipe at rural America, where these stations are needed so badly. It'll leave rural communities twisting in the wind. The Republican credo seems to be cut and cut and cut now, ask questions later. Cut health care for 16 million Americans. Cut food assistance to hungry kids. Cut good-paying energy jobs. Let the CPP get ahead of us. Never mind the destruction these cuts will have. Never mind the trillions Republicans just added to the debt to finance their billionaire giveaways. Never mind the kids who will go hungry, or the families that will lose insurance, or the people who will get sick and die. It's all worth it, Republicans seem to think, so long as billionaires and special interests pay less in taxes. And now, with this rescission package, Republicans want to keep going. Cut local radio stations, cut local TV stations, cut national security funding, cut funding to some of the most beloved programs in America. These cuts are just a piece of the larger Republican puzzle, where they'll use rescissions, impoundment, and pocket rescissions, and that will pave the way for even deeper and more serious spending cuts on things like health care, food assistance, energy, and so many other areas. And other Democratic safeguards will no longer be around. You eliminate the Democrats from the process, there's no discussion, there's no argument, and there are no safeguards that can help the average American. It's just the billionaires running rampant, and we're getting what they want. You want to understand the Republican playbook? Take a look at how they've attacked foreign aid. At the very beginning of this administration, Donald Trump and Elon Musk illegally shut down billions in foreign aid. When they were criticized for it, they hemmed, they hawed, they lied about their actions. The courts had to step in. Now that these programs have fiscal 2025 dollars, Republicans are trying to do it all over again, this time through a cynical rescissions package. They're passing this law to get the outcome they wanted in the first place, gutting U.S. foreign aid. And let me be clear, this is not just about foreign aid, as important as it is. This is the playbook that Republicans will do across the board. They'll do it with health care. They'll do it with the Department of Education. They'll do it with our schools, our veterans, our housing. They'll do it to research dollars. They're just slashing them. I've heard of more instances of great research projects that could have saved lives that are now on hold and can never be brought back again because of the greed of Republicans and of the billionaires and the obeisance of Republicans to go along. It's amazing, cutting medical research where America has always led the world. But now we're going to give that lead to China with what the Republicans are doing. They're already using impoundment. They're using rescissions. They're using pocket rescissions to poison the bipartisan process to break the law to steal funds that Congress appropriated, and they're doing it on a party line vote. Worse, they're letting Donald Trump decide for himself which programs to defund. And that puts everything at risk. Health care, education, food assistance, public health. Everything becomes at risk, and that's what happens if a package like this is allowed to become law. Now, returning to this week's bill, what do this week's cuts mean for families back home? Well, tens of millions of Americans rely on public broadcast for weather alerts, local news, keeping track of City Hall, educational programs, and so much more. This affects most badly rural America, including Native communities. And these cuts couldn't come at a worse time. The floods in Texas remind us that speedy alerts and up-to-the-minute forecasts can mean the difference between life and death. And for millions, public radio and local TV are sometimes the only way to stay up to date. So why the hell is this administration so obsessed with gutting those funds that save lives? It's probably because some whim of Donald Trump's. And he often governs by whim. But then it has disastrous consequences because Republicans just bow to those whims, even though they're without factual basis. They don't look at the facts. They don't care about the facts. Donald Trump wants it, let's do it. Donald Trump may not appreciate the vital role of public media, but people back home know how public broadcast is indispensable. And it's not just local TV stations and public radio that's in danger. These ill-conceived Republican cuts can threaten our national security. These cuts indiscriminately slash billions in critical aid that prevents the spread of disease, fosters economic development, and expands America's cultural impact on the world stage. And believe me, when we fight with foreign aid and programs, diseases in other countries in Africa or Asia, it benefits us because those diseases in this world where people fly from one place to the other all the time, it benefits us because it will prevent those diseases from coming here. Removing PEPFAR from the list of cuts was good, but nowhere near enough, and we're not fooled by a small tweak to this package. These cuts will still leave America weaker, our adversaries more emboldened. After all, foreign aid isn't just about goodwill, it's about our security. Cutting foreign aid will have terrible consequences for our security. It increases the exposure of Americans to global health risks, as I mentioned. The cuts harm funding that directly benefits U.S. farmers, U.S. researchers. They'll damage U.S. companies' market access abroad. They'll make communities around the world more susceptible to terrorist recruitment efforts. China, Russia, meanwhile, will look on with glee. I thought Republicans cared about being strong on national security. I thought they understood the role that the U.S.'s soft power has in keeping the world a safer place for our values. This bill gravely undermines Republican commitments to U.S. leadership around the world, something so many people have prized. If Republicans slash more American aid, it will leave a dangerous vacuum that the Chinese Communist Party will continue to eagerly fill. It is a fact it's happening already in Myanmar, in sub-Saharan Africa, in the race for access to precious minerals. These are places where the CCP is taking advantage of America's absence. And it will have terrible consequences in the long term for our safety, for our security. And these rescissions are only the beginning. We know Donald Trump. We know that Russell Vought want to send even more rescission packages down the line as soon as next month. Remember, Donald Trump and Republican leaders reportedly struck up a crooked bargain. If the hard-right members of the House Freedom Caucus agreed to support the big, ugly betrayal, Donald Trump would reward them with even deeper cuts to health care and other things that the hard-right despises. Republicans will pursue these cuts by any means necessary, through rescissions, impoundment, pocket rescissions, even if that means taking a wrecking ball to the bipartisan appropriations process to pave the way for future cuts. It could pave the way for more cuts to Medicaid, to education, to nutrition, to agencies like the VA and more, and all this translates to working people having to pay more out of pocket while billionaires pay less in taxes. When people's health care is taken away, when people's local services are taken away, it adds to a family's expenses. It makes life more expensive for people who live paycheck to paycheck. It makes it harder to see a doctor. It makes it harder to afford medications. It makes it more difficult to choose between providing for health care or providing for groceries. And making things even worse, Donald Trump's tariffs coming in at the worst possible time is making inflation go up, jacking up grocery prices, and eating away at family budgets. The tariffs have gone up more than people expected in June, but because so many of those who buy overseas front-loaded their purchases in the first and second quarters, it's very likely the tariffs will go up much more in the next quarter. Republicans say they fight for the middle class. They say they fight for working people. Then they turn around and take investments away from middle America and rural America and make them pay for more out of pocket. Billionaires, meanwhile, have never had it so good thanks to Donald Trump and his Republican loyalists. I yield the floor.